Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the show. It's Sunday night. Another episode of True Detective has wrapped. There are crazy questions we need to answer. What secrets are hidden in life and death and the Harvest Moon? Is Roland West in on the cover-up? And what the F happens in the pink rooms? I need to know. We're going to talk about all that and more. We'll see you guys in just one quick second on True Detective.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
And there's no music.
Nothing.
Because it's True Detective and we're just that serious.
We don't even need the music.
We take ourselves seriously, guys.
Damn right.
Oh my God, I'm excited. We're back.
We're Pizzolatto serious about this.
Yes,
That's how.
we are.
Super serial.
We got the whole panel back. This is like the first time since week 2. Yeah, how you guys feeling?
Feeling good. Hi, guys. I missed y'all.
Nice to see you. You guys feel good?
I'm feeling really good, and I'm loving this show. So I think just because I want to make the most of our time here before we get anything crazy, let's start right here. Nate, what did you think of the episode?
I liked it a lot. A lot of absolutely fantastic performances. It was a lot more character-driven than I expected it to be, but at the same point, we got a fair amount of plot progression, too. So I really enjoyed this one.
Julia.
I loved it. I mean, I gush and I gush about the show, I know. But this episode in particular, I found to be extremely compelling. I think the pacing was right on point. These characters are so unbelievably rich that... in addition to it being rich, we're also, like you said, getting a lot of payoff. And so I'm just completely satisfied with what's going on here.
Yeah. Flippo, what do you think?
I agree. I think we're getting that we're hitting with the meat of the bat, and that's the thing. We've done three seasons of True Detective now.
Yeah.
And that's the Pizzolatto thing. You're going to pay for it. You have to pay up front. That's how he makes you pay. It's like when you go to ballroom dance, you have to drop a bunch of money to start, and now you get the payoff. Like he's like, I'm going to drag you out for the first couple, and then I'm going to start giving you the fun stuff.
Yeah. So this is
we're getting goodies.
Season 3, episode 6. This one titled "Hunters in the Dark," directed by Daniel Sackheim. Back from another episode. I agree with you guys. I think the progression of this episode was really nice. I like the pacing. A lot of the stuff that we have kind of had teased in the first few episodes, some of the suspicions, stuff that, there's always cover-ups going on in these cases, and some of the cover-ups that they're alluding to, we're starting to kind of see the pieces come together. I mentioned this last week, but it does have a feeling of that the momentum, and now we're kind of rolling downhill.
Yeah.
We're really moving, and I think that's really cool. One thing that stuck out to me in this one I was noticing is what makes True Detective a compelling show is the combination of there being an actual crime, like the detectives on the, but then also you have to care. You really have to care about these characters because the stuff that makes it work is like the relationship in season 1 between like Marty and his wife. And it's not necessarily the case. It's like him cheating on his wife. And do you care about these characters enough to watch them argue about their family? And it's the same thing in this season where you're watching what's going on with Wayne Hayes and his wife as it's like sort of their marriage appears to be falling apart in the 1990 timeline. I like these characters enough, 6 episodes deep, that I'm willing to watch that. Even if it's not necessarily uncovering the murder, I just like the characters. That really matters. Season 2 didn't have that. Season 2 characters
you're
really weren't
1,000%
likable.
right.
I'm not going to stand here while this slander about season 2.
You don't like season 2.
No, I think that's I think you're right.
I think it's a fair criticism of season 2.
I would even say more so than season 1, which was much more noir-y and a little more creepy, a little more action, a little more sex. This has almost even pulled back some of that, of like the detective stuff, to focus more on the characters and the relationships, like between Hayes and Roland and Hayes and Amelia, and it's astonishing.
The scene that Ray Fisher, his son Henry is his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has with Mahershala Ali when he's talking about, he realizes that he's onto him and he's cheating on his wife.
Right.
Like that was a wonderful scene, and like again, most of what that scene's about is just about like raising your son and the importance of family. It really has very little to do with the case. And again, I found that to be the most compelling scene in the whole episode.
It also just says a lot too about like when he says that he's been thinking about himself, like he really has been, all these things that he's been constantly fighting with Amelia about, how he doesn't take responsibilities for his actions and he hasn't not grown up, and now we finally see all these years later, he's like,
up, yeah.
oh shoot, he sees what his son is going through, and he goes, you are behaving this way because of behaviors that I taught.
Did I teach
taking
you to withhold? Yeah. Well, what I loved about that scene, and one in particular, we're bringing it up, is the father-son dynamic was so relaxed because it's getting mushy, because as Wayne is in decline, obviously Henry's having to step up and take care of him more and more, so that the power dynamic has shifted, and that allows for a lot more truth to just be there. You don't have to put on your dad hat. You can just be a guy, essentially. And I think the way he said that to him, like, what are you going to do? Tell her so you feel better and she feels worse? That doesn't help you. You're going to leave her? No. Well, then shut the fuck up. Like it was solid advice, and it was But I've said this before. I love shifting power dynamics. I think it makes for the most compelling stories, and the way that the father-son dynamic shifts, and then you have those moments where you can be just totally honest, which is very freeing, I think.
Yeah.
I honestly think that says a lot about his character, that's the advice that he gives him, because I actually disagree. I don't think that's good advice. I think that's terrible advice, because I think no matter what, the truth is going to come out. And if you really love her, you should tell her before she finds out on her own, and then deal with the consequences of your actions. But for him, it says a lot to say about his character that he would rather sweep it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen, because he feels like that's what is going to be better for the people that he cares about, which I think relates back to what him and Roland have been talking about what they did,
right?
Which we don't exactly know yet.
There's a lot of clarity in him, which is ironic because he's losing his faculties of his mind.
Right.
And to have this moment of clarity and to be able to express that to his son in this really touching and moving and really interesting scene that we haven't seen him really be emotional and have those sort of moments really very often. I thought it was a really interesting scene. And what I'm really loving about this show is that even though we are shifting time periods and time frames and states of mind, and the lines are blurred.
Yeah.
But it's clear all at the same time. And I think it's really a fascinating thing that they're doing, that they are making it so they're making this character of Hayes in all these different timelines interweave with themselves, and I think it's mind-blowing how, but you can still follow it so easily. They really are, they make it so clear, something that should be so confusing.
They built this is such a tour de force moment for Mahershala Ali. Like, they really build an incredible story for him in 8 episodes. Like, he's just showing off. Like, everybody else in the show is good, but he really is the one that just gets to have this amazing run. And some of the lines in that scene with Ray Fisher were just like so well written, and they remind me a lot of how when you watch an Aaron Sorkin project, you're like,
yeah,
real people don't talk that way, but it sounds so good in this moment.
Wouldn't it be great if they did?
And I love when he says, like, I wasn't afraid of anything before I knew you. Who says this on before I knew you, or before you knew me?
Before you knew me, I was brave. I was some people call brave.
People,
yeah.
Well, someone thinks I did brave, and I've been terrified since the day you were born.
Made me a coward.
It's just great writing. It's the kind of writing that you wish you'd be aware enough to realize if your father was saying to you, you're like, this is a great moment, and you're watching it. I thought that was such a cool thing. Their relationship has been interesting. But getting into kind of some of the crime stuff here, just so we can make sure we're actually covering the story, I think the first thing that I want to talk about is this is the second reference to the pink rooms, right? This is twice we've now heard about it. I have it written down here. Where is it?
The girl at the halfway house with the nuns was talking about the pink castle, right? Wasn't she?
Yeah, I have it written down. Here it is. Queen in a pink castle. The pink.
Right.
The pink rooms. And so the episode actually ends on this big cliffhanger where we I think we're assuming we're seeing the pink rooms. And
seem pretty pink.
Look pretty pink to me.
This queen in this castle. So we're starting to see all these little threads weave together into the conspiracy. And the first question I have for you guys is, if the pink rooms are where we're trying to get, is Roland covering up something? Because I've been feeling like he's resistant to Hayes enough in the 1990 timeline. I feel like he's in on it. Like, I even when they were talking in the 2015 timeline, he says, "Is there a car here?" I thought they were going to pull the move where, as they zoomed out, you see there was a car, and he had lied to him.
See, I think there's something. I agree with you. There's something, but I don't think it's a cover up of the pink room or the crime. I think there's something that they did in 1990 that Hayes is not remembering, that Roland is protecting him from.
Okay.
That's what I think.
But he's talking about in 90, right?
I'm talking. So in 90 is when you start to feel like Roland is in on something, because that's when Hayes is pushing the agenda and Roland is kind of shutting him down. It feels like he's brought him in on the case, but each time Hayes kind of pushes something, Roland will be like, "You got to take it easy. You got to do your job. I'm doing my job. You got to let's we're gonna clear this guy." And he's like, "Well, we got to look at him." He's like, "We're gonna clear him." You feel like he's. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you wonder how he became lieutenant, how he progressed his career. We've looked at, what's his name, Harris. He's definitely taken some sort of payoff.
Yep.
Granted,
Right.
he's a big baddie. So I wonder if they are sort of moving in the same direction. So, I hadn't actually thought about that, of him being in on it, of Wes being in on it. But it makes a little bit of sense. I guess I could buy it. And he is resistant to Tom being involved, or Hayes really investigating Tom being involved.
Because what's the moment when he picks up the book? What is that? He's looking at the book.
Are you talking about 2015?
Yes, he sees the gun in 2015, and he picks up the book, and he's looking at it. And it's almost like what I was wondering is, like, he's looking and he's thinking, is this guy crazy or is he figuring out what he's not supposed to know? And he walks back, and you're wondering, is he going to pick the gun up? What's going to happen right now? Because there's a weird moment there, no?
I think there's
didn't see
some.
that.
I think there's something that went down. I think something went down in the 90 timeline that Hoyt is covering up in his own brain for himself, and I think that Roland is. I think he's protecting him from it. I don't get a vibe like with Tom. I feel like Roland's hesitation to go after Tom is his own personal involvement, his investment.
But why was he so personally involved?
have
Is that a
a-
guilty conscience about something? That he worked so hard to get this guy on the straight and narrow?
Maybe.
I have a theory about that.
Okay.
I don't think that Roland is hiding something from Hayes about the case, but I do think he is hiding something.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a wild theory. I think maybe there's something more to his relationship with Tom and like this, absence time.
Never got
and,
married. So, yeah, right. Okay, so
and
maybe.
and the way that he interacts with him and his like, more than just like, oh, I was your sponsor. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
yep.
there might be something there.
Like a sexual relationship?
Yes, possibly.
Gotcha.
That wouldn't surprise me. That's,
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm picking that up.
But I don't think that he's involved with the crime as much as like his complacency about like pushing the case forward is because he wants to protect his job. Like we've already seen, we don't know exactly what happens at the end of the 80 story, but from what we can piece together, they both participated in some kind of cover-up, and Hayes didn't really want to go along with it, and that's why he didn't get promoted. And somewhere Roland was like, all right, cool, we'll go with this, and that's why he got the job.
But him protecting his job is the red herring. That's what you're supposed to think. That's the whole point. You're supposed to look at it every time he says that and go, he's the level-headed one, and he's the mad dog because he wants to chase down the lead no matter what it does to his career. But, like, that's obviously and they even want you to make, like...
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what you're supposed to think, and I think there's more going on.
But I think there's another possibility to it. There is just a good looking out. I mean, there's just the possibility that he's a friend who has seen his buddy's career plateau in the last 10 years because he doesn't know how to act with the higher ups. He sees that he's got a marriage with 2 kids and a wife, but he doesn't understand the boundaries, and he doesn't understand that he's supposed to be home at a certain time, and he doesn't understand that he needs to prioritize his own family. And so I feel like some of the stuff that Roland is throwing toward Hayes is just good looking out. Like,
Yeah.
hey, man, you need to learn how to talk. You need to learn how to talk to these guys above you. You need to get home at a certain time. You need to have balance in your life.
Yeah, I think they're good friends, and I think he can see that this case is consuming him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much more obvious in the 90s when you see him jump on and Hayes immediately throws himself 110% into the case. And I think that's why Roland is just kind of seeing the same thing that he saw in 80. He knows Hayes. He knows what he's going to do.
So we
But
got
it could be wrong.
Comment in the chat here. Joni Amon says Roland seems close to Tom, makes me curious. So that's inconsistent with your theory. I feel like that is something to look at. Again, I hear you. Good looking out at the same time, though. It's like if you got a hot tip and you think that there's maybe 24 or possibly 48 hours to get a hold of this on this guy and get him his money, then what are you doing going home if this girl's maybe out there? That's like there's weirdness there to me. But so that was one thing I was wondering about. So we're gonna jump around timelines a little bit, but I think let's deconstruct that 2015 scene really quickly because it's one of the most interesting scenes in this episode to me. The two of them sitting there. You know, Hayes pouring his Johnny Black. He goes to the bathroom. He comes back. You know, Roland is looking at his book. He sees the gun, and he asks him about the car. And there's a lot of things going on. The first one is his dementia. He plays it off like he kind of doesn't know where he is or what's going on. That's what you're supposed to think, right? He says, how you doing? And it's like, you just forgot what you were doing, and now you're kind of catching back up, right? That's what we were all supposed to
Oh,
think.
yeah. He comes in the room and he goes, Roland? He's like
Yeah.
surprised that he's there.
First of all, is that intentional or is he faking it?
I think you're looking.
No, that's
I could be
that's
wrong,
dementia,
but
man.
That scene was weird, man. I'm just telling you.
There's
That was
also-
We've got a lot. We got some of that in fam. and
There's
that's-
also a thing too. With,
that's legit.
Yeah, with Alzheimer's and dementia, I forget what they call it. Something sundown, where like at night the symptoms get worse. The symptoms of paranoia and like losing yourself.
Got it.
So given that it was nighttime, it kind of makes sense that that's actually what would happen. And also just the intensity of that shot when he is thinking about the car that might be watching him. To me, that was just like the last time we saw him going through the paranoia. So that gave me the indication that he really was like having that feeling, probably along with the losing his memory. The paranoia comes with that, and that's why he was asking about the car. The question is, why didn't they show the street?
Yes, agreed. Because that's what I'm saying. I think there was a car there.
But I think
And secondly, what was Roland doing with the book? What is it? Why does he get up and walk over, see the gun, and look at the book? There's something there.
It made you nervous, didn't it?
Yes.
Now, did you guys think that he was going to leave with the book? I thought he was going to leave with it,
possibly.
which would have been like kicking Hayes' legs out from under him. But yeah, something's going on. I agree with you. But I don't think it's anything nefarious. I don't know. I don't get a nefarious vibe from the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
I'm
there is
with you.
something huge
I think
in 90 that we're missing.
The implication that we haven't got the end story of all of the timelines that like is building towards what each one builds off of, right? So there's something that happened in 90. The implication is that they kill Harris because that. To me,
I think that's pretty clear.
He looked just like the
Yeah.
guy
The
that was
ghost
in the
that
back,
was- yeah.
right?
Yes.
And he's okay.
the whole
And then
hand
they
thing
keep
and
alluding
yeah.
to something that they did that they shouldn't have done that they
Yep.
got away with, and he keeps asking, like, making sure that they're not going to say anything. So to me, that's where most of that weirdness concern comes from. Is him like, is my friend in his dementia going to accidentally let slip that we murdered this guy?
Right.
And somehow participated in the cover-up or
And who's
something.
going to take care of my dogs when I'm in prison for murdering Harris? Yeah.
Well, and also just the way that he talked about like throwing everything away and like living on his own and like
Right.
It's also seems like I don't know. It seems like he's kind of guilty to go from the guy in his office with the picture with Bill Clinton and his medals all over the wall and all that stuff. Like that was a intentional character change for him to throw all that stuff away.
Yeah.
right.
Agreed.
Everything he valued, everything he he made a priority.
Right, everything that kind of defined him as a character in the 80 and 90 timeline. So
Well, there was a regression in his character, right?
Yeah.
After whatever it is that happened in
Right.
1990 happened. Because, he was on the up and up. He wasn't really smoking anymore. He was barely drinking. He was helping Tom get straight and narrow. And then we see him in 2015, and he's just pouring Crown into his coffee. He's
Crown,
drinking.
too.
Ooh.
Hey.
Oh, Canadian whiskey for
sorry.
you, huh? Okay, all right, to each
it's-
their own.
Yeah, it comes in that fancy bag.
So trying to deconstruct what in 2015 they're looking back on, and we there's not so much because I don't want to just spend the whole episode speculating, but the conversation in 2015 they're looking back at something happens in the 90 timeline, and the first thing I want to ask about is not Amelia but the reporter.
Eliza.
Sorry. Eliza is interviewing Hayes, and she's talking about, have you considered just the sheer number of fatalities involved with this
How
case?
many
since it
are there?
started?
Is it 16 or what is it now? There's 12 or there's 11?
There's 12 in the initial, plus a
10,
bunch of like
12.
disappeared
But
people.
we don't know about Julie, right? So there's
Harris James, there's Dan's body, there's Lucy. So it's like probably north of 15, closer to 20.
Right.
And so she's asking him this, and she starts suggesting things, and he has that line about you're projecting, you're assuming things, and it informs
Yeah.
you and the way you view the case, right? It's like basically tampering with what you should be doing. He gets really uncomfortable. See, there's part of me that thinks that some of what Hayes is doing is he's playing the dementia card in moments. He's pretending. He's not always suffering. I think sometimes he's just getting out of those interview moments because she's getting too close to something that he kind of somewhere in there knows is.
I think it's the
I
same
agree.
thing. I think it's the same thing with Roland. I think it's the exact same thing. There's something that he doesn't want to see, he doesn't want to face, and that's when he kind of bails on the interview. That's when Roland gets protective. I think it's whatever they did, he is not cognizant of it. And I think they brought it up a couple different ways, like Roland asking him, "Hey, are you sure you know what you're doing?" He said, "Well, if I remember something, I'll know not to say it," or something to
He's
those
like, how
And
can I-
otherwise, I
can I
just
give-
won't remember it. So how
Right.
can I tell?
How can I give something away if I don't remember it?
Right.
That's what he says.
And if I do remember it, I'll know not to say anything or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I think there is a something he genuinely doesn't remember, and Roland is aware that he doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he remembers why Roland was mad at him, why they didn't speak for
Yeah.
25
years. We don't know what
That's true,
happened
too.
there. I don't think he remembers what that was. I do think he remembers killing whoever it was they killed, probably Harris.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you. I think he is depending upon his dementia and relying on it and being able to play it up when it's convenient, knowing people will buy it. I'm very interested in this Eliza character. I think she's investigating him more than the crime. I think she's trying to get to the bottom of
Might be.
whatever
And she's
the
playing-
big bad.
And she's definitely playing Henry.
Oh, no question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's getting. Yeah.
Oh, she and her wily ways.
Yeah.
She seems way too controlled
Yeah.
to have just gone, "Oh, you're so handsome. I'm going to accidentally throw
I mean,
myself
he is a
at you."
super
Just
handsome guy, to be fair.
Repeating
Well,
the same
yeah.
cycle that his
Yeah.
dad and his mom went through of
Yeah.
getting
Ooh,
close
dude, that's
in a
so
relationship
true.
to find out details
Yeah.
about the case.
Yeah, based
Yeah.
on this creepy case that turns women on.
Yeah, so speaking of which, we're going to get to Amelia's character in a second because I think it's a big one. But I want to
Dude.
remind everybody here, quickly, before we get to Amelia and discussing all of the things that are wrong with the way she handles crime, we are the ESPN of TV Talk. You guys, the fans of this show, the fans of this network, have made us into the ESPN of TV Talk. We do after shows for almost every single show on television. It's over 150 shows all the time. And the best thing you guys can do if you want to help support us to stay in business as the number one, providing this free content for you guys, is to subscribe on YouTube, like, comment, leave your comments below. That's an important thing to do. We're going to pull up some comments here from the last couple weeks here and share them on the show at the end of the show tonight. Also, give us a rating on iTunes. 5 stars preferably if you like the show.
5
You know, it
stars
helps
is
us
great.
stay high in the standings. That's a great thing to do. And last but not least, we diversified all of the AfterBuzz TV YouTube channels recently. So there's a drama channel, there's reality TV, there's comedy, there's superhero shows, and each one of them kind of has their own targeted feed. So go check those out. Subscribe to some other channels if you want to watch some other stuff. And thank you for supporting us doing what we love, because AfterBuzz TV, you know, it's given an opportunity to all of us.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Amelia and this book that she's working on. We see her doing a reading from it at the end there, Life and Death and the Harvest Moon. Now, that's the big book, right? Life and Death and the Harvest Moon is the one that she's famous for.
Yes.
And she's doing a reading, and this guy with one eye. Is it the same guy with one
don't
eye?
know.
It's not, right? Because
It's not?
No,
Okay.
we're
We
led
don't
to
think
believe
so.
there was another one. I wish.
it's not the same guy.
No?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
From a narrative point of view, I think that's a mistake on their part to have that 2 episodes apart and expect people to remember clearly this guy that was in like 4 minutes of an episode, one
And
eye,
10
who was
years
not
before.
famous, and to be able to just like pull that, because I swear to you, 95% of the people watching that episode are asking the exact same question: is that the same character we saw 2 episodes ago, or is it not? No, not for you. You didn't even consider.
I didn't. I mean, maybe I should go back and watch it, but I felt pretty confident that they looked differently.
They look differently. I mean, because they say in that scene, there's other guys around here with one eye, so that's you have to ask
Yeah.
yourself the question. Guys in the chat, would you make sure that they're just, if anybody knows, confirm
Yeah,
it?
someone look that up for us, because we go straight from watching it to talking about
Yeah,
it.
literally.
I got to tell you, I love what he said, though. You just making money on their pain. You're just going around making money on their pain. Shame on you. That's exactly how Hayes feels about it.
Yeah.
I happen to agree with it, and I think that is, I think that's why it cut her so good, because she feels the truth of it. Like that's the deal.
Well, right, and I mean that's the conversation that starts the episode in the 1990
It
timeline
sure is,
with
yeah.
Amelia and Hayes, and they're talking, and she's like, new opportunity, and they kind of flip that
Right.
phrase around. She's like, it's an opportunity for you, right? Back in major crimes, and they kind of have this moment, right? She says, I think it suits you better, you know, basically just running free. So I think it's kind of fascinating that it's a major theme in this season is the concept of the way that the media treats pain and misery, and like, you know, local news is all about that, right? Local news is literally just no.
So the guy from before had like this white beard,
Beard,
and
yeah.
his eye was his strained eye was also his
eye?
his right eye.
Got it.
Whereas this guy that we just saw, it was
Left
just
eye shaved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different guy. Okay.
Different
There
guy.
we go.
Confirmed. And
Perfect. Thank you, Internet.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Internet Nate.
Shout
you,
out to
Internet.
Reddit.
sweet. So she's reading, you know, this passage from her book, and somebody in the chat here just suggested something that I think is very interesting. Ill Will says, "What if Roland and Hayes killed Amelia?"
Oof.
I mean, maybe if she is indeed involved in some way. I feel like that.
I thought she had a disease, though. I thought she was sick, wasn't she?
I mean, that's what they mentioned
thought so.
earlier, but like,
But why?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's interesting. We don't know how she's just mysteriously gone. She's gone somewhere between 90 and 2015.
Right. Well, that's 25 years.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a lot of time.
Yeah, but there's been no mention of it. Aside from the fact that it's referenced she has a disease, like the actual details of it, when it happened, how many
Right.
more books she had written, where they were at in their relationship, were they together, all of it. It's very, very, very vague.
Well,
and
I'm
we're
sure
6
it-
episodes in.
And I would like to think that it has something to do with Becca being all the way on the other side of the country, how Becca won't visit, how Becca
Right.
has sort of
She's out.
Yeah.
removed herself from the family altogether. I too have been wondering what happened to her, when it happened. Yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, the treatment of their relationship is pretty fascinating. The episode starts with the two of them in bed after, you know, in the 1980 timeline, after Hayes gets shot at. And she says, I was going to wait with you, so you seem like the type of guy that thing matters to. And it's such a judgy comment. Like,
Dude.
she's so controlling and manipulative. She's so judgy of him. And then he says, don't do that. Don't try to check if I'm judging you. I'm not. Like, I loved that whole interaction. Once again, more Sorkin. Like, the way people, like, don't actually talk.
I gotta be real, man. The character that they wrote for her, I love the church lady clothes.
Yeah.
And the sex fire underneath for this case. This case turns her on so goddamn much, it's insane. She can barely keep it together.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's just bubbling right underneath, and it's interesting, and that's the whole fire that kept that relationship together, I think. Don't you think so? I mean,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, the intrigue and the murder and all
Yeah.
that. Totally.
I mean, it's what kept their marriage alive as well. Not just got them together, but through all the 80s, because she's
Yeah.
writing the book, the 90s when it's reinvigorated, and then we sort of don't know what happens after that to her.
And she's also so. I mean, first of all, I don't think she's a particularly likable character at this point. I think she's one of the. And I mentioned earlier, I like the relationships. I find her character to be kind of obnoxious, but she runs after Lucy after that. The conviction is handed down. She's like, I wanted to apologize, and it's like, no, you didn't. You just wanted a story.
Oh,
you
yeah.
just wanted to write a
want
book.
more.
Well, he
You want
said, I
more.
think it was our last episode, that everyone is a story to you. Everyone you meet is a story to you when they're having that big fight. And what I found interesting in that very first scene, right after they're lying in bed, right after they had sex for the very first time,
Right.
she turns and goes, I want to know your story. And I was like, of course you do. Oh, I hate her. I love to hate her.
Yeah.
But I think she is extremely manipulative and kind of gross.
Yeah.
But fantastic character.
Really, really good character. Yeah.
Performance is spot on.
It is interesting the way they write Hayes in relation to her, because Hayes continuously hates the only thing that keeps his marriage
I know.
alive.
He hates that she's so involved. He can't stand it.
And it's just that constant dichotomy. Like, at no point has he ever looked up and recognized that this is what made this happen and continues to make it happen.
Yeah.
This is what gets her hot for you.
So we see Dan again. This is the cousin.
Yes.
And the first time we saw Dan, he kind of looked like he was playing in like an early 90s, late 80s band of
Like
some
a little
kind.
vampire goth band
Right.
or something.
Exactly. And then we see him again, he's very strung out.
At the Waffle Hut.
I love
At the hut.
Yeah, I love that, like, just we talked about this while we were watching, but in movies and television, like, hard smoking and hard drinking, it just looks like so just, like, awesome. People just do it like crazy, and you're like, man, guy. And I was just watching.
It hurts.
look
Don't
gross.
do it.
I was just watching. Well, he looks strung
Can you imagine
out.
trying to eat some breakfast and the guy next to you's
Smoking
puffing on a cigarette?
Yeah, it's brutal.
There was
ruin
Smoking
your
and chewing.
pancakes.
There's so many cigarettes. Even the girl she's interviewing at the church is just like smoking out the
Yeah.
window.
Oh, yeah.
Smoking just was like a thing.
Well, it was good for you, they thought back then.
It was
Isn't
the
that how they
90s.
tried
It was
to sell
not
it?
good
Like,
for you.
they were still selling it. It was still cool.
They
50s,
knew.
it was good for you, and then it just sort of progressed to you're really cool if you do it.
I just watched the King speech, and one of the doctors recommends to him, he's like, smoking relaxes
Yeah.
the throat. You should smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
It'll help you with your speech impediment.
Love that movie.
But yeah, it's a great movie. But so talking about, he shows up and he says he's got a secret, and he knows something, and we find out after he gets basically hassled by Tom and beats the shit out of him. Looks like he's gonna kill him. At first, I thought he just bashed his head in.
Yeah.
Thought he was dead.
Yeah,
Thought that
I thought
was
it
his
was like a
death scene.
oopsie.
Yeah. But we find out that he knows something, and he gives Tom something, and Tom
Gives Tom Hoyt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how Tom ends up in the pink rooms.
Yeah.
But when he's first talking to the cops, first of all, great performance.
Yeah.
Really, for a drug addict, like that type of thing. I know it's not a face that I recognize this actor, and he really did a great job with it. Like, he controlled that scene, and you believe that he had these guys hamstrung. Like, these are pretty tough detectives. But yeah, he says that he's got this thing. He needs $7,000, and
What
he
an
makes
odd amount, right?
I know.
this is a specific amount, right?
And in 1990, it's really not that much money.
He makes
I
a
know.
comment. He says, "Who was paying Lucy all those years? Who was paying her before she ran off?" So there's somebody with a lot of money, and I think this is something I alluded to last week. But we do now believe that there's a connection between she worked on the chicken line,
Right.
Yep.
and her kids somehow involved. That's where they know her from, and her kids, right? That's I think we're all.
No, I
kind
think
of
we've
agreed.
all,
yes.
yeah, we've alluded
Yes,
to that.
There's a clear connection at
I
this
think.
point.
I mean, I feel like we knew that the Hoyt thing was very important from
Yeah.
the beginning. I think, especially when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And just the way that they presented all of that, and then also like whenever you have something like this which has a large conspiracy, there needs to be
Money.
Yeah, exactly.
Money.
And it just,
Can't have a large conspiracy without any money.
Yeah.
The connection between also, not the connection, but the scene in 1990 when Hayes and West go to interview him, and he's just such a dick, and he makes the comment about like God created the world in 6 days.
Right.
All that, he just like seems so guilty. He's like almost too guilty,
He also makes the comment about Hayes' body too.
which is really interesting,
Which
right?
I don't know if that's supposed to.
There's no accidents in Nick Pizzolatto script.
He says, "I don't eat donuts," and he says, "I can see that you've got a good body." What an interesting thing to
Yeah,
say.
if you're gonna recognize that someone's not eating donuts and it's not weird, you just go, "Oh yeah, you look good, bro." That's it. You don't go, "Yeah, you've got a great body."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long
Well,
drawn
also
out.
remember this episode we learned about Tom. So
Yeah.
and I mean, this is one of those things where like, where do you guys land? Do you think Tom is implicated in some way, or do you think that he really doesn't know anything?
No, I don't think Tom's involved.
You think Tom is being framed, basically?
I don't think he's being framed. I think he's involved in some way. I think he knows more than he's been saying, but I don't
Yeah.
think he knows everything. I think he.
The Tom interrogation was an interesting scene, too. I was thinking about two things there. The first one is that, so police interrogation, do you think that's just like something that if you casually wanted to learn how to interrogate someone in your life, not like necessarily somebody in like a room, you could just learn? Because it does seem like a tactic, like a
Yeah.
skill, the way that you can actually extract information, tell when people are lying.
Let me tell you, there's a dad that was a buddy of mine that's a detective, and when you talk to him, you'll catch yourself sliding down the rabbit hole and be like, God damn it, stop it.
Yeah.
Because he just leading questions and open-ended, and they'll just listen and let you go. And then before you know it, you feel like, holy shit, I'm about to implicate myself and we're talking at a bar.
Yeah.
There's just they learn how to do that, and those leading questions.
Yeah.
It's never like it is in the movies, though. They're much more charming, much more gentle.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. And before you know it, you're stumbling over yourself, and you're like, oh, what the hell just happened?
So Flippo's wanted for murder is what's going
Yeah,
on.
in like 6 states. And I am terrible at it.
Perfect.
Yeah, just live on air.
There was a moment in the very beginning, watching episode 5 right into episode 6, that I was like, oh my God, I didn't think about Tom. I've been so sympathetic towards Tom. And he's like very possibly not really her real dad anyway. And that has stuck
That's
with me
some
since
tough
the
business.
moment that was sort of flippantly thrown out there. And I think that was in the very first
Some
episode.
of the stuff about whose kids they actually were is interesting, and I
Mm-hmm.
haven't totally bought into it. I feel like that's a little bit of a red herring, but maybe. I mean, what do you guys think?
He's definitely not their biological dad.
Okay.
You
I
think
mean,
not?
he says, I raised them,
not
like the way
Julie's.
that he says, like, oh, I raised them, I woke up in the middle
I
of the night,
held
like
them in
the
my
way that he's
hands.
saying that is him justifying that, even though they're not biologically his kids, they're still his kids. in his
Now,
mind.
I would argue in 1980, I don't think there was that. I don't think it was as easy to figure out whose dad was whose kid. You know what I
Right.
mean? It wasn't like it is today. But
when you know Lucy, and then also the implication
but-
now that he might have been gay, and their relationship was
wouldn't you
never great.
not for nothing. I mean, wouldn't you think that if it seemed to me, and I agree with what you're saying, that he's definitely gone over this enough times in his head that he'll go right to it. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night, that's my kid. But I don't think that necessarily means it's not his kid. It definitely means he's questioned it. I think he's definitely had demons about it.
Mono Patrick here in the chat says they shared a lot of milestones. He repeats that line. That's
Yeah.
one of the things
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
said at the
with,
diner with Lucy.
Dan
With
O'Brien.
Yeah,
Dan.
Dan and Lucy. And
Yeah.
then somebody else here, Douglas
I
Sirk
thought the
adds
same thing.
somebody adds incest, and then the whole cousin thing is curious with Dan and Lucy. This is Jack one that says this because I'm thinking back to the aunt thing being mentioned with Julie, and aunts and cousins and uncles and shit play all into one another. And so it's possible. Do we think that Dan and Lucy had the kids? Is that a possibility?
Oh, absolutely.
Shared a lot of milestones
I
together.
think that's a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely possible.
Brother
yeah.
and sister.
And he lived in Will's room for a long time. So,
Yeah.
And Dan seems to know like Hoyt and be connected to the people that he sort of gave the kids up to, blackmail something. That's kind of where this is going. So I think because we don't have a tremendous amount of time left, I want to make sure that we are able to cover everything. In the 1980 timeline, is there anything that we need to cover before we get into... I want to read a couple comments from last week. Wow, we've got almost 100 people in the chat right now, guys.
Nice.
By the way,
hi, guys.
big shout out
Chat.
to everybody in the chat. This is awesome. Anybody want to add anything?
I'm looking at my 1980.
Well, in 1980s, we talked about there was a press conference. Then we got those 10 people that were killed with the what you call it, the attorney wanting to make sure, and then
Yeah,
Hoyt,
that scene of them pressing him.
Yeah.
that was very important.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Hayes
and that is
to
again.
implicate Woodard.
Yeah.
Say it's done.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think that's where Roland's trying to fix him in the 90s because that's when you don't know how to act.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. You can't blow out like that. Now you got a target on the back of your head. And so, like, they're laying down for you. Look, 10 people got killed, 12. All right, that's right, the kid's fine. But, you know, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to frame it out this way. And he, you know, he gets your story straight and he storms off. That puts a target on the back of your head. Because essentially you're not just questioning the integrity of the people involved, you're also threatening them without knowing you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Because if these people have political aspirations and you are going to blow them up, you're a direct threat now. Yeah. If you're too dumb to realize that that's what you're doing, then you need your boy Roland to eventually help you out and try to show you that. Because
I don't even think that it's ignorance. I think he just doesn't care. I think he's still, especially in the 1980 timeline, I think he's still wrapped up in being a soldier, and that's why he immerses himself in his work so much. Mm-hmm. I think he could care less. I think he knows what they're trying to put on him and what it means for them. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, interesting. So a couple things to share here from last week. Ryan Nilsson's comment, what a terrific episode. The voicemail was fascinating. An officer has been killed, but by who? And that final scene between the two partners was heartbreaking. Couldn't agree more. That scene was fantastic last week. That was one of the best scenes of the whole season. Lara Stapleton also says, I know a writer who never read his also writer wife's book. Two things. Many men can't stand women's achievement. He was also afraid he was judged in it, but he also must have felt she was invading his work. I think it makes total sense. So just a couple comments to read here, guys. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments from this week's episode. If you leave them in the live chat, they won't show up. We'll see them now, but they won't actually count. Afterwards, though, if you want to share your comments, we'll read them next week.
I want to talk about what she just said there about the husband and it's interesting because when, at least in this particular structure, when he has an opinion about the case and he has an opinion about her having opinions about the case.
Yeah.
And I think it fucks with his opinion of her when he's faced with how he feels about her book.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So instead of dealing with that, he's ignored the book. So it only bubbles up every now and again.
One of my suggestions last week, though, was that I think he has read the book. I think he's forgotten about it.
Oh, you think he read it at some point in between?
I don't understand how it's possible. She could have had a best-selling book on a case that's consumed his whole life. She died of a disease, and he spent the entirety of this time without her never having read the book. That seems impossible to me. That seems...
Well, he's certainly read it now. He's got enough highlights and clips. And
his whole character flaw is that he doesn't look inward in himself and that he doesn't accept responsibility. And reading the book would require him to do that.
Okay.
Because he's in the book so much. And then also, too, whatever they're covering up, he has actively been, he has forgotten about it now.
He's a major part of it, though.
But before that, up until he started getting, forgetting things, there must have been something in there that he didn't even want to,
something. He doesn't want to confront something. Well, that's what
to that. I feel like even though this case has fueled their relationship and their marriage, he's also very resentful of her involvement and her insertion into it without really his permission.
And I've been married a long time. You've been married a long time. Mm-hmm. There's things about our spouses that you go, I don't like this part. And so, you try to kind of, you don't try to ignore it, but you're like, well, I'd rather move on from this. And it seems like the tragic, Achilles heel of their whole relationship is that thing that he doesn't like about Amelia is the entire basis of their relationship. Yeah. And so, I can see him not wanting to dive into that book because he finds her voyeuristic approach to all this so distasteful.
I feel like it would probably be the end of their marriage if he read that book.
It seems right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, especially, we don't even know how the 1990 timeline ends, but we're presuming that it doesn't end well and that whatever, air quotes, closes the case, which is not really closed.
Right.
Probably he just didn't want to talk about it anymore or think about it or read the book. So I don't know. I see your point though. He definitely, especially with what we've seen of him, he could have read it already and forgotten about it.
Yeah, it's definitely, that was one of the most curious details. I talked about it a lot last week, and so I think that's a great time for us to get into predictions because I want to talk about that final scene, what we think is going to happen.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So guys, while we're doing our predictions, if you want to share yours in the live chat here, we can share some of yours here on the show, and I'm going to have each of us starting with you, Flippo. First of all, Flippo, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on the Twitters at Joe Flippo, and then website is josephsanfilippo.com.
What's your hottest prediction?
Man. I don't, I got to be honest, man, I got nothing. It is she in the room when he's there? Is she in the pink room?
He says Julie.
This is Julie?
Is Julie in the room? Is it a picture of Julie? Is it Julie's jacket? Is it what the fuck is, I don't know, man. I got nothing. I wish I had a prediction. I'm embarrassed. that I don't have one, but I don't. I just I left this episode like.
Well, the longer you can ramble about not having one, the longer it gives Julia to come up with one.
Did you like what I did there?
no.
Did you like that?
I always panic at predictions. Like my least favorite part of this gig. I hate it because okay.
I gave you 10 minutes. You're fine.
I know. I mean, I did. Oh, wait, is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, I did sort of allude to the fact that I think that the reporter Eliza is investigating. Not just this case, but the entirety of all these disappearances, and I think she is pointedly looking at Roland and Hayes. Thank you very much.
She's doing the investigation. Yeah, I think that's a strong prediction.
That's what I think.
Where can the folks find you if they want to follow on your career?
Twitter and Instagram with my name, Julia Cearley, JuliaCearley.
Cool. Nate Miller, what do you think?
First, guys, you can find me everywhere at Dog Like Nate. My super wild prediction is, like I said, there's something between Roland and Tom, something we don't know about.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think what's going to happen, just super loose, something's going to happen at the Hoyt residence, obviously. I think Amelia is going to find herself into a situation she's not supposed to be in. I think she might get killed in the crossfire some way like that, and I think that's why maybe they kill Harris. And then I think we're going to find out that no matter what, there's some big cover-up that is like that kind of brushes under the rug, and that kind of implicates them murdering Harris as like, well, if you don't go along with this, then we're going to turn you into. And I think that's what is kind of the big thing that Hayes or Roland has been like, that kind of like turned him off completely from everything and made him, make sure you shut up because there are people bigger than us. And I think that's where his Hayes' paranoia actually comes from, is that there is this big something that's in charge of this cover-up that is keeping an eye on him and make sure he doesn't say anything.
You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram, what have you. My prediction is that we're going to see in the next 2 episodes where this connects to season 1, and that's I've been feeling it since you mentioned it and dangled it in season 1 as a possibility. Sorry, in episode 1, the like lower floor dungeon hallway thing reminded me a lot of those corridors at the end of season 1. And he says, my family's had these tunnels for years. Like, I think that there's going to be a connection there. And I do think that like child abduction and the much larger sort of weird like semi-religious like culty sort of thing with kids and sex, I think it's the same, like, larger entity.
There's so many more cult sex dungeons out there than I would have ever thought.
Yeah, right.
The one thing I want to say really quick on that same vein is when Amelia is talking to that girl, and she is talking about, she says, like, you don't know the things that girls in this town, and this is the story you should be telling. So to me, that says it's even bigger than just a Julia, and that they've been, like, running girls through there or something. But I don't know. It's going to get wild.
Absolutely.
I think so, too. I think we're going to find out. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being in the chat. Be sure to leave your comments below. We'll share them next week on the show. Same time, same place next Sunday. Guys, thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.